Hello, my lovely listeners! It is I, your beautiful princess, the Blue Princess 590, here once again to bring you a new episode of my lovely podcast, The Mad Ramblings of a Blue Princess. This will be episode 7. Now then, as you all know, I took quite a bit of a break because last week I went on vacation to the Anime Central 2023 convention in Illinois. No, and I had an absolute blast. It was so much fun being able to wear cosplay, seeing everybody else's amazing cosplays, buying all sorts of cool fan art, posters, as well as a bunch of nice merch. I even got the whole Claymore manga series collection from the Crunchyroll store. It was absolutely fantastic. Some of the best time I've had in a really long time. But I'm finally back to do my podcast again. And for this episode, I'm not going to be talking just about one game, not just two games, but 4 games. And they are all part of the Mario series. That's right, I'm going to be talking about my experience playing Mario Odyssey, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, Mario Sunshine, and in Paper Mario and the Origami King. Now then, we're gonna start off with Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story first, since this is the game I started playing first. Now then, right off the bat, this game is incredible. Like, it feels so good to play. Because, like, I have played Mario and Luigi Superstars before on the Wii U, because back when they had the virtual console store. Excuse me for the burping. Very unladylike me. I apologize. But yeah, basically I played Superstar before, and while I did enjoy it, it also felt very rough. Like Mario and Luigi felt just a little bit too slow, which made it very hard to like dodge time my dodgings correctly. The hammer, like I think how the hammers worked before is that you had to like repeatedly tap the button in order for them to like lift the hammers up, which got frustrating. And in general, fights were just a bit iffy. Like it had that like first game in the series jank. You know what I mean? Where like we were playing a game for the very first time in the series and it's got some problems because of the results of it, being the first game. But yeah, I played Bowser Inside Story and it already feels so much better. Like Mario and Luigi feel a lot faster, a lot snappier. It's so much easier to time your jumps and your hammer strikes. It feels so good landing that extra bonus hit when you do it. And I really like how the game sort of uses the two screens, which I'll get into later. But yeah, the combat in this game feels fantastic. There are, of course, the bro moves, of course, they are still up fairly difficult at times sometimes, but they're still like very much fun to use, and I like how much big damage they can cause. But yeah, the general gameplay feel for Mario and Luigi themselves is fantastic. But then you have Bowser, who can also play, that also feels really good too. I love how much power he has to just like moving him on the screen, and how like when he just punches things, you can see the lower screen shake from the force of his punches, which is really really cool. But I also really like how like when you switch between Mario and Luigi, like Mario and Luigi are on the bottom screen and Bowser's on the top screen, which is cool. At least it's during the parts of the game in which you control like both sets of characters. But I also really like how Bowser's like his moves are set is different from Mario and Luigi. For Bowser, he doesn't have the hammer, so instead he's got like sorry. Sorry, he's got his punches and his fire breathing for like his normal attacks, but like for his more defensive abilities, he still has the punch, which basically works kind of like the hammer. But instead of a jump, he's got a thing where he retreats to his shell. Where basically, like, if an enemy attack is like coming from above, retreating the shell, and then the spikes from the shell will end up hurting his enemies, which is like really cool. And I also really like how the fire breath works because it doesn't do as much damage as the punch itself, but it's able to hit multiple foes at once, which is nice, and can sometimes leave enemies burnt, which is really cool. And also kind of like how instead of having bro moves, because Bowser fights himself, he basically like summons his minions and has them like work together with him to do a cool attack. And that's where the stylus comes in, and use the stylus to execute most of these moves. And I actually kind of prefer these moves more than the bro moves because of the stylus, because it feels like it's a little bit easier to do, because with the bro moves you have to get your timing like just perfect in order to keep doing the attack and make sure you don't screw up. But with the stylus, it's less about the timing, more about like using the stylus itself correctly, which makes the attacks a bit easier to do. Though the downside is probably the fact that, if I recall correctly, Bowser's moves tend to take up more SP than Mario and Luigi's bro moves. So there is the downside, but they're like easier to use and can do slightly more damage, which is nice. But now time for the story. I really do like the premise of the story, which is basically that like Fawful, a previous antagonist from the first Mario and Luigi game, comes back and he basically manipulates Bowser as part of his plan, and basically like he tricks Bowser into eating this fruit that causes him to suck everybody up uncontrollably, and that's how Mario and Luigi end up inside Bowser, and they end up having to explore his body. While Bowser in the outside world is trying to deal with Fawful, who is not only trying to take over the Mushroom Kingdom, but has already successfully taken over Bowser's castle and stolen his minions. So the team ends up having to work together with Mario and Luigi taking care of things within Bowser's body and helping give him boosts and issues where he like adrenaline boosts and issues or extra strength where he needs them. Whereas Bowser is dealing with stuff in the physical world like fighting Fawful's pig minion, which is basically a rival for Bowser that I think is like really cool. I like how Mario and Luigi sort of tackling the idea of like shonen rivalries, but for Bowser himself, which works because Bowser himself is like this big physical brute. So giving him a rival works really well. But I also like how comedic the game sort of portrays it because the pig guy himself is despite being a legit intimidating friend, he's still got that goofy Mario Luigi aspects to him. And I also like how Bowser doesn't know it's Mario and Luigi that are helping him most of the time because he is talking only to Carlo, who's basically like your companion in this game. She's basically like this star spirit who was called in to by the Mushroom Kingdom to help with their current problem, which is basically like the toads are like they're like expanding into these giant like spherical fat monster things. Well, not really monsters, basically like they basically live in poison, which is causing them to inflate into these giant like balls, which are causing destruction. And of course, Fawful's the one behind it, but you don't know that in the beginning. But basically, Starlo was called in to help the Mushroom Kingdom with this problem when Bowser, under Fawful's influence, sucked everybody up. So she works as a companion. Basically, her role in the game is to sort of act as the voice of communication between the bros and Bowser, all while under the name of Chippy to keep Bowser from realizing the true identity, probably because they know Bowser would be pissed off if he found out his arch enemies were inside his body. But also she helps with like delivering tutorials for Mario and Luigi while they're exploring inside Bowser's body, which is pretty nice. I think she's a fun character. I really like her spunk and how she conquers the characters, but it does bug me how often she tends to dump on Luigi, because like Luigi's one of my favorite characters, so seeing him get talked down to by this other character who isn't quite, she isn't fighting like Mario and Luigi are. She's offering her support, of course, and they wouldn't be able to do this without her help, but she isn't the one fighting all these monsters, so it seems a bit unfair for her to give Luigi crap. But anyway, back to the game. But yeah, in general, I really love how this game works. It's a really fun game to play as Bowser, who's normally like the main tag in the series. And I really love how they like give him his own move sets to make him feel unique in comparison to Mario Luigi, because he really does feel like this brutish brawler who like tears his way throughout the scenery. Like one interesting comparison is that for Mario Luigi, like they just jump up to hit these small blocks, but as for Bowser, he like breaks these massive blocks to find stuff, and instead of like healing by eating mushrooms, he eats meat to heal, which is another cool thing. Another really cool thing about fights is that Bowser still has this ability to suck things up, which is not only helpful against fighting certain enemies as it can weaken them, or it can like even like grant Bowser certain bonuses. But if he sucks up an enemy in a whole, then you switch back to Mario and Luigi, who fight the enemy while inside Bowser's body, which is like it's such a really cool idea and such a brilliant use of the two screens on a DS. Like in general, yeah, I still haven't finished Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, but I've been loving playing it so far. It's really addictive the way the combat sort of feels and being able to like dodge attacks or like hit enemies. Everything about the way the game feels is so good, and the writing is also really good. It's very funny. I really love how Bowser himself has written. He's this very comical character who's got like, but he's very prideful and kind of rude, but he's still funny and he's sort of kind of naivety. Like his understanding of the world is very like simple and basic, which is very much reflective of his brutish conqueror nature. But I also do like how, even though he does seem to like treat his minions kind of crappy, he still is ultimately loyal for them and will fight for their sake, even if part of it is to benefit himself. And I also one thing I really like about the Mario and Luigi series is how they just sort of have Mario and Luigi speaking like this Italian gibberish when they're talking to each other. It's just really funny, and it's really nice to hear more of their voice actor just getting the talk, even though if he isn't literally talking. It just sort of helps with the personality and stuff. I also liked it when Mario or Luigi go down, they will like scream each other's name. Like it's another extra detail that just works really well. Um, Waffle himself is also a very fun character. He's got like this bizarre speech pattern that makes it always fun when to see him interacting with. And there's also another gag I really like where basically Waffle is looking after the Stark Star, which is basically like this powerful ancient evil that's been hidden under the Mushroom Kingdom. And in order to get it, he needs Peach because Peach has the power to do it. Because Peach, especially in these RPGs, is often portrayed with having this sort of magical, pure, holy magic as a result of her pure heart, which I think is really cool, like another way of like adding power to Peach in a way that fits her characterization, which is very nice. But yeah, back to Fawful. There's this really good joke where basically after he gets Peach out of Bowser's body because he needs her, he's carrying Peach's body, but it's too heavy for him. But he won't like ask for help or have somebody else carry Peach because it would make him look bad. So you're just struggling carrying her heavy body and like trying to keep people from like finding out how much. Well, it's not like he's definitely hiding how difficult it is to carry her, but he's definitely not refusing to like get help from his pig minion. Or no, no wait, he does ask the pig minion to carry Beach for him. Sorry, I got mixed up. He does ask it, but the pig minion gets scared and runs away, probably because implying that Peach is even too heavy for this brutish pig monster guy, which is like, it's a very funny joke. I like it, but yeah. Other things I like, I really like how like even though this game is an RPG, they still incorporate the platforming elements both in the level design, especially when you're playing as Mario and Luigi, because like while they're in Bowser's stomach, the world display it's fairly 2D in comparison to the outside world, which is more like a 3D plane, like not 3D as in literal 3D models, but with the way you move, it's like fully 3D. Whereas with inside Mario inside Bowser's body is so like straight up 2D. So you get a lot of like sort of platforming elements in the way that you as you traverse Bowser's body, which is really cool. One major complaint I do have about Bowser Inside Story is that there are sort of like minigame segments where in order to progress the story you'll have to do these sort of minigame things, which again move away from the traditional like combat of the battles and instead move on to more sort of like gimmicky play styles. Like there's this one mini game where you have to help Bowser eat a bunch of carrots, so you have to like use your stylus to click on the pieces as Mario and Luigi are like sort of breaking them inside his body, as well as like finding the special enzymes to break up more pieces of the carrot faster. And then there's these parts where you have to pump up Bowser's adrenaline. So you end up playing this like shooting game, which is like it's not too bad, but it can also be like kind of easy to screw up because you have a limit of how many hits you can take, and you also have to make sure you're hitting the red balls with Mario and the green balls with Luigi, which can be a bit frustrating at times. And like it's not terrible or anything. Like again, the rest of the game is so good it makes up for it, but it can feel a bit gimmicky and a bit like dull to play and a bit frustrating at times. There and like there are other mini games aspects like this where you play as Mario and Luigi that feel better than the ones I mentioned before, but they just don't feel quite as good as the normal gameplay. But there's definitely a rhythm to it as you play to the game that like these segments become a lot more bearable as you play more of it and as you get into the rhythm, which is nice. And I'm trying to find more to say. Oh yeah, one thing that I think is cool is that there are these like living block NPCs that you sort of that Bowser meets in the game, which I think is like relatively funny. Like sort of taking the idea of the blocks, the one of the most common items in Mario, and sort of like making them into characters into their own species. I think is sort of a clever idea. I also like how the main one you talk to, who's like the shopkeeper with mustache, is that in order to look aggressive, he'll often flip his head upside down so his mustache looks like eyebrows. It's fairly funny to look at. And let's see. Oh yeah, there's also like this side quest thing you do where you need to help the block man find his block cat. In exchange, he'll give you his block dog as like basically a minion for Bowser to use as part of his special moves. I haven't finished the side quest yet because there are still areas of the game I haven't explored yet. But it is a nice idea for a side quest, and the reward is looking very interesting. Like I really like it when there are side quests in RPGs that give you the rewards of like these super powerful moves or items. Like that's just really cool. Um, and of course, there are later parts of the game in which Mario and Luigi are able to get outside of Bowser's body, so you're able to explore the world as the brothers, which itself is really cool. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Mario and Luigi Inside Story so far. I'm really loving this game. Definitely gonna play it more. when I have the time, but in general, like I can see this game becoming a favorite because it feels so much fun to play, and the writing is like very funny and very creative. And in general, I just really love this premise of like playing as both Mario, Luigi, and Bowser himself, but Mario and Luigi are inside Bowser's body, so you're getting to explore his body while Bowser explores the outside world. It's just such a funny idea for a Mario game, and it's so cool how the game explores it. Like just a ton and a ton of fun. Alright, next up would be the second Mario game I played, which is Mario Sunshine, specifically the AC remaster for the Mario 3D All-Star collection. Now, this technically isn't the first time I played it. The first time I played Mario Sunshine was that you remember those McDonald's playpens, how they used to have like these stations for playing GameCube games? Well, there were two games I played the most. One was Sonic Heroes, which was my introduction to Sonic, and the other was Mario Sunshine. And I just gotta say I love the opening for this game. Like you start the game and then you get this beautiful CGI cutscene that still sold up to this day of like Mario, Luigi, and Toadsworth all going on a plane together to the vacation. And as they're seeing a advertisement for the Island of Delfino, which is the place they're going to, which is such a cool setting for a video game. Like I love how this game has like this whole like summer beach setting. Like in general, this area was filled with video games that had like a summer beach setting, and I kind of missed this stuff because it was always so cool and fun. It's like video games basically perfected the way of capturing that sensation of the summer as a kid and sort of like putting it in games so that you can experience it whenever. So, and I kind of miss it because I know the reason why they did at the time was to show up their water technology, and now we've already got like video game technology has come such a long way that stuff like that wouldn't be impressive anymore. But I would just love to have another video game with this type of setting. Anyway, back to the opening. But the point of interest in this opening is that while they're watching the commercial for their vacation area, Peach notices a mysterious, like, shadowy Mario in the background, which confuses her because she sees Mario's there with her on the plane. And so I love the gag of Mario just sort of fantasizing about all the delicious food he's going to eat on vacation. Like, it's just one of those details that's just, like, so funny. Well, it's not, like, super funny. It's just, like, it's just really charming, the fact that, like, Peach notices this thing, and she's all confused. This element of mystery that intrigues us when Mario is stuck in his daydreams about, like, the delicious food he's going to eat. Like, I think it's really cool how it not only characterizes Mario, but also, like, adds a really good comedy to just impose the sort of slight creepy and uneasiness you get from seeing that mysterious Shadow Mario. And I also like that Peach is the one who sort of notices it, sort of implying that she's more observant than people assume, which is nice. But anyway, yeah. As I said before, the McDonald's that I played at, like, it always had you play the opening segment of Mario Sunshine, and it is just probably, I think, one of the best openings in a Mario game. Like, not the best. I still say the best would probably be Galaxies, with Bowser like showing up and just like destroying the Mushroom Kingdom during the Star Festival, ripping out Peach's castle, and then watching Mario get tossed away into the vast darkness of space. That is perfect. But this is a close second because like you open it, you get to the game, and then the characters arrive immediately on the island, only to be stopped by this mysterious goop that they have to clean up. And then Mario walks around to figure out what's going on so that they can resolve the problem and continue their vacation, only for Mario to walk into Flood. Now, I really like Flood's character. He's got like this very no-nonsense, like he's basically like a machine, a robot. And so he sort of talks in this very matter-of-fact way. He doesn't show a ton of emotions. He's very like he's very like he's kind of static character, but he's also, you can tell, very observant, very no nonsense, and like there's almost this weird childish quality to his character, which I think is like expressed through his very goofy and silly design and sort of like the way he talks, like his voice. It sounds like a little kid's voice, but through a sort of like robotic filter. But in general, you very much get this idea that like this is sort of a young machine coming to grasp with life for the first time, and so it talks in this sort of like stilted, matter-of-fact way, but you can still tell that there's like sort of this curiosity for life in it. And I'm probably overthinking Flood's character more than like what the developers intended, but I just sort of really sort of like the sort of like bizarre robot personality they give him, and I think he's like a very fun sort of companion for Mario. Like, even though we don't get to see them interact much, you sort of get their dynamic from like the few cutscenes we see. But yeah, so when I first started the game, Mario and Flood felt a bit off to me. Like when I was first using it, I was having trouble getting used to Flood commercials, and I keep making the mistake where I would press the button to open the map instead of the button to fire Flood. So I definitely had some trouble. But as I played the game more, I sort of got used to it, and I sort of like enjoyed using Flood's a lot more. Specifically, I love Flood's like hover ability. Like it's just really fun to use during platforming, and it's like I also really love using it to attack enemies. Like getting above a like enemy or a spot and then immediately activating the hover so I can squirt them down from above. It's fun. But yeah, once you get Flood, you then use it to attack the Goop monster and clean it up. And I also like how before you do that, you can also notice the wanted sign with Mario's drawing on it, which immediately sort of tips you off that like besides everything else, the saying is super wrong in Delfino, and this Shadow Mario is up to something. But basically, like, gives you a clue of what's going on before they actually have the scene where Mario gets arrested. But yeah, you use the water to take down the goop, only for the goop to turn into a piranha-like monster, and you defeat it, and it feels so cool defeating it, like, especially when I was a kid, like, you feel cool, because there was this huge goopy monster, you're able to beat it no problem. But then, that fun in it, that, like, excitement you get, that traditional, like, sort of, like, oh yeah, because once you defeat the monster, you don't just like defeat. I'm pretty sure you get your first shine sprite once you defeat the goop monster. I might be misremembering, but yeah, there's that feeling of like satisfaction for doing a job well in the game, and that's immediately undercut by Mario getting arrested by the Al Delfino place and put in trial. And like, I love this premise for a Mario story where like Mario goes on vacation only for him to end up having to like only for him to immediately get arrested and reveal that he's been framed for these horrible crimes that you now have to fix. Which I love this premise for a Mario game. It's like so much more dramatic and sort of like there's a lot more despite from the percentages, Mario Sunshine comes across as a very much more story-driven game than previous Mario entries, and I really like this. It's very got this Saturday morning cartoony feel, but also this sense of mystery and intrigue because immediately you want to know like who is this Shadow Mario, why did they frame Mario, and like how are they going to get out of this situation. And I also really love like again um shoot, how did I forget Flood? Right, how did I forget his name like that? The goofball me. I really do love Flood's conversation with Mario while they're in the prison about how they're going to have to work to how Flood is going to help Mario sort of clean up all the scoops so that he, as well as prove his innocence. Like it's fun, and again it's very dramatic and very like again very gripping, and that's why I love this opening. And going through playing more of the game, I have to say I love Al Delfino like as a hub world. Like it's full of personality and charm. The aesthetics of Sunshine I say are its greatest strength. Like again, the summer beach look of it all is so amazing, and it's so much fun to play through and stuff. Like, but it's just a fun aesthetic to explore while you're playing the game that makes El Delfino such a fun hub world thanks to the aesthetic. And I also like how because like the shine sprites have been like mostly disappeared as a result of all the goop, like the area is like covered in this huge shadow that eventually disappears as you collect more. That slowly disappears as you collect more shine sprites, which is really good. But I also like how you can interact with the different Delfinos, and some will all have different responses. Some will be mad at you. Some will just be trying to sell you food. And of course, the cops are the ones who are like, we're keeping your eye on you, bud, so don't try to do anything. It's all really cool, and I love how there are different things you can do in the hub world to like collect different shine sprites. But yeah, as you play the game, you unlock more different areas and worlds, and I really do like the sort of levels of Mario Sunshine, and they all have this very unique feel and look to them. It feels like a setting in like sort of a Saturday Night cartoon, so like every level feels like an episode, which is fitting because the levels in this game are actually called episodes. And there's a bunch of like just general a lot of the area in the games are really cool. And I also really like a lot of the boss fights in this Mario Sunshine game. Like I really do love the mechanic of like using Flood to like screw with the enemies. Like with Peter Piranha, you use the Flood to sort of fill him up with water so he falls over so that you can jump on him. Or like another boss I really loved playing was the Squid boss because you get to tear off his arms, and I really do love how they're animated. In fact, how they like wiggle around and flop around a bit after you pull them off. It's really cool. The one problem I did have with the first like giant Squid boss is that if you're not paying, if you don't, there is like a part of where you can fall off the platform and like land to your death. And unfortunately, I didn't realize I was behind it. So because like when you pull back the arms off the squid thing, you're moving backwards. So I didn't realize I was close to the end. So when I did, I fell over and died. And unfortunately, Mario Odyssey has this problem where like if you just lose one life, you'll be kicked out of the level and have to start all over from the beginning, which is like really frustrating. Like I get if you lose all your lives, they kick you out of the level, but kicking you out of the level for just losing one life is such a pain. Especially because there are these other segments of the game, these like challenge areas where your flood is taken away. So it's just like straight up classic Mario platforming in these bizarre, weirdo dimensions. Like some of them, like I think some of them like have you like step on these like weird building blocks in toys, kind of like the worlds of Mario Galaxy. And then there's some that are just like these giant sand constructs that fall apart the more you jump on them. In these levels, if you die, you just get to restart the whole level. And you only get kicked out if you lose all your lives. And it's weird that they don't. Why, I don't get why they don't do this for the other levels. Like, why is it when I'm like in the pier, like in the pier level with all the ships and the metal to climb on, if I die, I get kicked out of the level for good? Like, what's the sense of it? Like, if I got it, if again, it would make sense if I lost all my lives because that's what a lot of 3D platformers, especially Mario games, kind of do. But if I just lose one life, why am I getting kicked out of the level and having to start the whole thing from the beginning? It just feels like, I don't know, it feels like a bad design choice in my opinion, and that's one of the complaints. But yeah, the general level design of Mario Sunshine I think is really cool, and I think there's like the different shine sprites you collect, they add a lot of variety. And when I first played the game, I expected to get frustrated that I would get kicked out of a world and have to go after getting a shine sprite and have to go back to get more shine sprites. But each episode, they make enough changes where I feel like it makes sense for them to kick you out of the level and to go back. I don't know, maybe there's a better way to handle this. I know in there are other 3D platform games where like you don't get kicked out once you collect one of the special pieces. But then again, from what I can tell with those, they're more like a lot more open. Whereas Mario Sunshine is more of the game in which like it's still level based. Like it's like an open 3D platformer, but there's very much still a level structure to each like collectible item you get. So I feel like I'm not too bugged by being kicked out of the world every time I get a shine sprite. Because I'm eventually being completed that level. But yeah, as you collect more shine sprites, you get more shine specs. For instance, you run into the mysterious Shadow Mario that's framed you, and he's like this weird inky Mario, and I really love his sort of movements. He's sort of childish and weird, and there's also this special theme that plays when he's around. It's creepy. Like in general, I just really love Paint Mario. He's so bizarre. His movements, his themes, they're all very creepy and weird. And there's this huge mystery around him because like you have to wonder what is up with this mysterious Mario, this copy, this like made up painting can create these portals with its paintbrush, and why does he keep kidnapping Peach? It's all so creepy and mysterious. And as you collect more shine sprites, you eventually find out that the mysterious Paint Mario is Bowser Jr., who is trying to kidnap Peach and frame Mario because he believes that Peach is his mother and that Mario kidnapped her, and so he was trying to like lock Mario up for good. And this is where I have a bit of a gripe with the story of Mario Sunshine. Is I feel like I feel like it reveals this to you too soon, and I wish it could sort of stretch out the mystery just a bit longer in order to create a better sense of intrigue. Because like once you find out that Ink Mario is Bowser Jr., eventually the story just kind of stops after that because eventually like you fight him in this like amusement park, which is really cool. I love how there's sort of fight where he's got like this robot, he's got this mecha Bowser he's fighting you, and you're on these like you're on a roller coaster firing rockets at him to attack him. And I also love the framework of this where like the guy running the amusement park thinks this is all a show, like in a tokusatsu. So he helps Mario fight the robot Bowser because he thinks it's all part of the show and he thinks he's just helping the thing go together. And like again, it's cool. But after that, like Bowser Jr. escapes his hot air balloon with Peach and goes up to a mountain. And I haven't finished the game yet, but I did check on YouTube, and that's basically when you stop getting cutscenes, and the story kind of ends by that point until you get enough sunshines to get to the mountain to reach Bowser. And it is disappointing because, like, again, I think what made the opening of Mario Sunshine so interesting is this huge mystery it opens up. There's, like, a lot more effort in the story, and it makes everything feel so much more interesting. But, like, again, it doesn't take a lot of shine sprites for you to get the scene where, like, you figure out the identity of Inky Paint Mario is Bowser Jr. And like I wish the game stressed a bit more out. I wish they took more effort into the mystery, and I wish there were more cutscenes after the confrontation with Bowser Jr. just to make the story feel a bit more engaging, because I feel like it's the story and presentation that are like the real strengths of Mario Sunshine. Because like, well, I do enjoy playing it. It is a very janky game. Like, I remember hearing that this game was sort of rushed through development, and you can kind of tell that this game was rushed because there's a lot of jank. There's a lot of things that don't quite work, and there's a lot of like frustrating design choices I feel like probably would have been ironed out or tweaked if they were given more time. And I think that's sort of the biggest problem with Mario Odyssey. I mean Mario Sunshine, because while it is a very fun game and while it looks gorgeous and the general feel and vibes of the game are a lot of fun, there is a lot of technical issues sort of harming the game. And like, it definitely feels like it was taken out of the oven just a little bit soon. It feels like it needs more room to cook. There are some very frustrating levels, or sort of frustrating. Um, there's a lot of frustrating glyphs that you feel like would have been ironed out if the game was given more time. Like as I said, Mario and Flood feel a bit off at the beginning. Well, it does get a bit used to as you can play. You can tell that they probably would have played a lot better if they were given more time to like play test it and iron out the control feels. And I also feel like some of the levels, because as before, there's some like sort of frustrating levels. Like there's this one level that I haven't finished yet because it's so just frustrating, where like the PD Piranha comes back and you're trying to fight him, but it's like it's just generally frustrating to go through because he keeps moving around and it's sort of difficult to get him down. And there's also like, again, a lot of ink all over the level, so it's a lot more difficult to move around, and it feels more frustrating to play through rather than fun and engaging. And And again, there's also again the problem of every time you die in a normal level, you get kicked out even if you still have more lives. So that just adds on to the layers of frustration and annoyance to the game, which is a bit frustrating to deal with. Because I feel like Mario Sunshine would be one of the best Mario games if it was just given a little bit more time in the oven. Because Flood is great. Mario is also fun to play, even though again I said that they do feel off at the beginning. Once you get into it, it's really good, and like I feel like they would feel even better given more time. But I also feel like a lot of the levels I feel like would be a bit more stronger with given more time, because some of them do feel like, again, frustrating or weak. But again, and I also feel like the story probably would have had a lot more cutscene, a lot more work if it was given more time. Like, this is a game that is good and is fun, but it's so plainly obvious that it needed a little bit of extra work, a bit more time in the oven in order to really be great. Because like the stuff about this game that's good, like I don't even know if there are like other Mario games that have the same fun vibe of this game, have as much, has an aesthetic this good. Not saying Galaxy and Odyssey aren't gorgeous games, they are, but there's a specific vibe, this specific like harmony of themes in Mario Sunshine, because again, because the whole place is sort of set in this like Isle Delfino resort, all the levels are sort of connected to each other, and they all share this general vibe and aesthetic that makes the game feel so cool to play with. Because like Odyssey and Galaxy both have, well, Galaxy does have the space theme sort of connecting everything. Each different galaxy has its own unique vibe and aesthetic that makes them differentiate them from each other. And Odyssey itself is like you're going around the world, so every area you go to is completely different from another one. Whereas Sunshine, everything is sort of connected through this harmony, this common theme of a summer vacation resort. And I like this. I sort of like this unity between all the levels. It makes it feel so much more like a big connected world, and it's a lot of fun to play through. And again, I feel like Mario Sunshine would be such a better game if it was just given this time. Like I feel like it could probably be one of the best Mario games of all time if it just had more time in it. Yeah. Anyway, I think I've repeated myself a little bit too much during this segment, so I'm going to take a break from. We're going to stop talking about Mario Sunshine and move on to the third Mario game I played between the 2 weeks, and that will be Mario Odyssey. Now, this isn't the first time I played Mario Odyssey. I remember playing a little bit of it before, around the time it came out, but I just sort of stopped for whatever reason. I can't remember. I do have this problem a lot of times, but I'll start media and just stop it, even though I'm enjoying it for no real reason other than, I don't know, for some reason my brain is just like, stop, do something else. And I'm like, okay. And then I forget to get back to the thing important. But yeah. Started Mario Odyssey mainly because I was like in the mood for like more 3D Mario games, and while I was enjoying Sunshine, there was the last set that frustrated me, so I just wanted to try something else.
And start off, Mario Odyssey also has a really strong opening. I think I like Sunshine's opening a bit more, but Odyssey is still good with like Bowser's already kidnapping Peach for his creepy wedding. Mario is trying to stop her, but Bowser's already got an edge and he's able to clobber Mario. Not just knocking him off the ship, but even destroying Mario's trademark hat, which again I think is a really clever way of like not only like setting up the Cappy and the sort of mechanic of them, but it's a really good way of showing just how much Bowser has managed to defeat Mario at the beginning. Sort of showing us that Mario is the underdog at this stage, trying to climb the top to take down Bowser, who's already got so much power. And destroying the hat, which is probably one of the most iconic parts of Mario's design, is like a really smart way of doing it. But yeah, Mario ends up finding himself in this new world, this like it's sort of dark and gloomy, and we eventually find out this basically this world of like these ghost hats. And I forget the name of the world, but I really like the general design of it. Like I love how the grass isn't actually grass, it's like felt from a hat. And like you can tell that just by the textures and the way everything looks. And I like how there's fog everywhere, really gives it that sort of ghastly look. But I also really like the designs of Cappy and the other ghost hats, where all like these 1950s 40 sort of styles of hats, which I think fits with the which of course is the aesthetic the whole world's going for, like 1940s and 50s, but like told through like these spooky ghosts. And I really like that sort of choice. Helps make the world feel very. It helps make the world like very stand out aesthetically, and I feel like going through this older time period really helps fits with like the spooky ghost look of the whole thing. And I do like Cappy as a companion. I think I might like Flood a little bit more, but Cappy in general he's very sort of expressive. He's a lot more blatantly emotional than Flood was in Sunshine, who's a lot more robotic. So Cappy helps add this sort of like charm personality and his sort of like strip his very apparent emotions. And I do kind of like how like when he and Mario first meet, he's kind of scared of Mario, so you have to chase him around. I sort of like that. Sort of helps shows the fact that he is a slightly more innocent. He's a lot. It kind of shows the fact that he isn't as. Sorry, I'm trying to find the right words for it. He isn't as dominating as Mario himself is. He doesn't have that sort of like ace spotlight personality, sort of like Mario does. So it makes sense that he fills the supportive role for Mario, even though he is the one who sort of talks and is given a bit more like on-screen motivation than Mario, because Mario is still meant to be sort of an avatar for the player of ways. Cappy does he's able to have more personality and have a more straight-up character through his like dialogue and sort of like more visible emotions, while also still being a bit more passive and filling the sidekick role for Mario, who is sort of like the silent protagonist. But yeah, Cappy is he's a very cute companion, and I sort of love how he like fuses with Mario's destroyed hats, because Mario himself, like again, Cappy's normal form, which is like a top hat, isn't Mario's style, so he fuses with the destroyed Mario's hat to take the form of Mario's original cap. And I really like the idea of sort of taking Mario's cap and making it into a full-fledged companion through Cappy. Like it's a very good idea of taking like the iconic iconography of the series and sort of turning it into character. I remember Legend of Zelda did something similar to that in Minish Cap, where Link's hat was also his companion, which was like it was really cool. Now I think about it, I'm pretty sure that game was like at least when it came out was meant to be the origin for Link's iconic hat, which is like pretty funny. But yeah, back to Mario Odyssey. You basically go through the level. You sort of see how it's already been destroyed because Bowser has shown up and already has established before that Bowser and his crew destroyed this area in order to steal Cappy's wife to be the tiara for Peach's wedding dress. Which again, and I like how we see this, how the area sort of destroyed is covered in posters for Bowser's wedding. There's fire everywhere. All the ships have been destroyed and broken. And I really like that how they do this, how the first level in this game is like is a world that Bowser has already successfully conquered. I mean, not conquered, but sort of like destroyed and ruined in the wake of in his mad dash for prizes for his wedding. So it's a really good way of showing us off the bat the amount of destruction Bowser's had throughout the game, which makes us want to defeat him even more, as well as sort of setting him up as this major threat. So it's kind of idea that we're not just stopping this wedding and say Peach, we're also trying our best to help all the people that have been ruined by Bowser's selfish quest. as well as sort of seeing like how much Bowser's actions are affecting the world around us. Like this Mario Odyssey in its name itself is an odyssey. It's Mario traveling around the entire world and going on this big adventure to stop Bowser. And I love how Bowser himself is also going on this quest around the world, but it's a much more driven by selfish and self-serving nature, which again is really cool. It covered this parallel where like where to every world Bowser goes to, he sort of like destroys it and he steals from it and causes his grief. Whereas with every world Mario goes to, he saves it and basically helps restore it to his former glory after being harmed by Bowser. Again, like a cool sort of duality and parallels between the two. But yeah, and eventually as you go through this world, you end up figuring out the main gimmick of Odyssey, which is possession. Since like again, Cappy's like basically a ghost hat, so using his powers, Mario is capable of possessing a variety of different animals or creatures throughout the different worlds. The first one you possess is a frog, and I really love the cutscene they do for this. It's very cinematic and extra. I love how as Mario goes into the frog, you can sort of see like memories of the frog's life, and I also love the animation for it where it seems like or Mario, like he becomes particles, he disappears, and then he enters this strange world in which he gets consumed by all this water. And I really love it's like a very cool way of visualizing a sort of possession. I also like how Mario's reaction to becoming the frog. Like not only does the frog now have Mario's eyes and I believe his mustache too, but you see Mario sort of freaking out as he's in the frog's body. Like I don't know, it's really cool. It's a very funny and the way it's animated is so cool. And yeah, but you play as the frog basically in order to get to higher areas, and it feels really good. Like the frog, it's easy to control. The way it moves feels very nice, and I love how big and exciting the jump is. But yeah, it's all good stuff. But eventually you end up basically after find the top part of the area, you end up running into these like rabbits. They're basically like Bowser's like hired wedding planners, and basically their goal is to stop Mario from getting in the way of the wedding. So you end up having to fight them on the way, and their boss fights are fairly simple. Like the first one is basically you just gotta like use the Cappy because you can use Cappy as sort of like as a projectile attack and a area attack. So basically use Cappy to knock off one of the bunny party planners hats off so you can hit him with your jump. And yeah, simple basic pop fight. And eventually Cappy and Mario are able to use the electric pulse to move on from Cappy's homeworld to the dinosaur world. And I really sort of like this area too. Like the idea of Mario going into this like prehistoric world filled with dinosaurs is just like it's such a cool idea because it also feels like a callback to Super Mario World where Mario was like because Yoshi is basically a dinosaur where he went to this world of dinosaurs, Yoshi's world, and was sort of like going on this adventure with dinosaurs. So like going into this prehistoric world feels like a callback to that. I mean, I have no idea that was the intention, but that's sort of the what I got, and I really liked it. And basically in this world, mainly control chain chops in order to sort of like destroy blocks that are getting in your way, and then eventually you get to just control a freaking T-Rex to like just wreak havoc everywhere. You're basically invincible. You can like bulldoze through the chain chops, which are like one of the few enemies in the Mario games you can't really hurt. You're able to destroy these gigantic blocks with ease. It's like so cool and fun. Again, I really love how like after you beat the base of the tutorial, they send you to another world. It's like this awesome action set piece that grips you right away, making the whole thing that much more energetic. Like again, it's a really good way to start off the game, like basically making the second world this big, exciting set piece area where you get to all this cool stuff. And it's like a ton of fun. But basically, this is the level where not only we get access to the ship of the game, which is basically like this like flying top hat house ship thing, which is like really cool. I really like that. I really like the way it looks, and I like how we're using specifically a ship with its own sail for this world because again it's sort of like an Odyssey, which is because it's called Mario Odyssey in reference to Homer's Odyssey, not Homer's Odyssey. But yeah, sorry, I'm just getting the wrong. But you know what I mean, like the ancient Greek story of the Odyssey, this idea of like sailing around the world as part of this big epic quest. And so I like how the ship we ride on still sort of homages that, but still really super and fits the world of Mario. And I also like how like when you go inside it, it's basically like it looks like the living room of a house, which helps give it this cozy feel, which I think is very nice. Also like on the outside of the ship is the globe of the world, which is basically like helps you like it's basically like your map for the planets of the Super Mario World, but it's also like just in general a sort of I think it's a really cool part detail for the design and shit that makes it fun. But yeah, eventually this world is where we find the main collectibles of the game, which are like I think they're moon pieces or moon spirits, yeah, something like that. But like yeah, I think making it moons is kind of cool because in the previous games it was always stars, so moving from the stars to have you collect moons instead, I think is nice, and it also is very fitting because like we go to Cappy's world in the game is like this night area with the full moon shining. So it makes sense that the ships of Cappy's people are powered by like these moonshine spirits. Again, really cool. But yeah, as you go through the world, collecting more of not only the moon sprites, but also purple coins, you eventually run into the boss of this world, which I believe is the mother of the bunnies, who is basically like her gimmick is that she has a pet chain chop that you are able to take control of and use to whack her with it. Because again, the game already like showed you how to control the chain chops. Basically, you move them forward until you build up steam and then release in order to cause damage. And like again, it's fun. Her design is very goofy and very fun to see. I really like it. And again, I really like the gimmick of sort of using the chain chops to attack her. But yeah, Mario Odyssey itself is just like it's a very strong game. It also feels incredibly well. Like I feel like playing it feels a lot better than Mario Sunshine and even some levels of Mario Galaxy. Like Mario just controls so well. There's a bunch of different moves you're able to use with him right off the bat. And the way Cappy works is also good because he's got like that sort of spin attack that you had in Mario Galaxy, but it feels a little bit easier to pull off with Cappy. But also because Cappy himself, you're able to use him as a projectile outside of the spin attack. So you're still able to do like a close counter attack and a projectile count. So it's really cool. You feel like you got so many options just right off the bat, and that's not even counting the different possessions you can do. So after you get enough moon sprites to power up the ship, it's finally raring and ready to go. Bleh. Da-da-da-da-da. Bleh. Okay, back to talking instead of mumbling. Sorry, guys. Okay, but yeah, once you get the ship can finally get ready to go, and so you get up to the next world, which is basically a desert Mexican city populated by living sugar skulls. And what's interesting about this world is that despite being a desert, the place is incredibly cold and you can see ice sticking out of the ground, which again I think is really clever. You know, setting up this world that you expect to be like a hot desert world only to be awestruck by the fact that it's freezing cold now for some reason. And I also love the fact that the world it's not just it's cold as a way of like observing your investigation. No, there's it's specifically set for a mystery of this world and part of the trouble you need to fix as you try to get more moon sprites to reach Bowser. And one other thing I forgot to mention before going to the world is that once you actually start flying the ship, Cappy will transform from Mario's hat into a captain's hat, basically because you know you're becoming a captain of a ship and now you're sailing across the world, and I really like it. I really love the look from Mario and I really like the vibes of it. But yeah, the the desert world is the Mexican desert world is pretty cool. I mainly just got to first I wandered around a bit because there is some stuff to news, but then I went to the city where I talked to different sugar dolls, getting sort of finding out that basically the cold stuff isn't normal. This isn't how this world's supposed to be, and something bad has happened up in there, like because they have this pyramids. They have these pyramids in the background, which are basically these areas for like their sacred magical stuff, and then something bad's been going on in there. So you bet, yeah, Bowser and his gang crones were probably there, probably stealing something for the wedding. So you know you gotta get down there and take care of business. But you can also do stuff in the town to earn stars. One thing I really like is you can actually. One cool thing about Odyssey is that you can unlock different like outfits with the purple coins you buy. I mean, the purple coins you find. Like, each world has its own set of purple coins, which you can use to buy different costumes for Mario. And if you unlock the sombrero, and yeah, if you unlock the sombrero costume, you're able to enter you're able to enter a party in the town where you receive a star. And I really like this. Giving this special star that's hidden behind the costume. Like, yeah, I really like this idea. Basically, the costumes sort of like not just being an aesthetic thing, but something that plays into like the actual levels themselves and being like a way to get more moon moon sprites is just so cool. But yeah, that's basically where I took a break from Mario Odyssey because soon I was about to get a new Mario game for my birthday, and that game was none other than Paper Mario and the Origami King. And I really, 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 really like this game. Talk about one of the my favorite things, or like one of the things I really, really like about Paper Mario and the Origami King right off the bat is I love the aesthetic and visuals of this game. Like I really love how hardcore they go into the paper aesthetic in the series and make everything paper. Like the characters just aren't just like they're not just made of paper, but like even the buildings, the backgrounds, the environments, everything is made out of different type of paper to create this sort of like arts and craft paper mache world. And it all looks so cool. I love how the characters are also animated too. It's got this nice stop motion vibe in the way that all the characters are animated in a way that makes it seem like they're making paper. Like I love how when Paper Mario jumps, you can see the top parts of him like crease a little bit because of the paper. Or how um like how the coins are like made out of cardboard with, or like how shiny material has like tinfoil wrapped around it in order to give it that shiny look. Just everything about the sort of aesthetic of it is beautiful. The animations are all amazing. Everything itself feels like it's made out of living paper, and it works so well. And I also love how like you can see like when there's like holes in the world, because one of the mechanics of Paper Mario: The Origami is that there's like these bottomless pits throughout the world. You got to fill up with confetti, which fitting to make it confetti because of paper. But yeah, but like you can see through the holes, you can see like the wiring that you sort of make up this paper mache world, and I think that's really cool. But yeah, after since okay, done talking about the aesthetics, and like I do know that the previous two Paper Mario games also leaned heavily into the a world of paper aesthetic for the world. However, from what I've heard, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, they don't seem to execute this idea quite as well as Paper Mario and the Origami King. And Origami King also has the added benefit of having a stronger story, at least from what I've heard, than those two games. So it helps make the sort of lean into the paper aesthetic work better and feel more organic, because not only is it executed better, but there's a strong enough story to support it. At least that's what I've heard, because I have not played Sticker Star or Paper or like Color Splash yet. And I don't think I'm ever probably going to play Sticker Star, just because like from what I've seen, from what I've heard, it seems like a really bad and boring game. And maybe I might check out Color Splash someday, but the problem with that is it's on the Wii U, and I just don't feel like bringing out my Wii U to play that game at this moment. But yeah, now back into talking about the opening of Paper Mario and the Origami King. I like how the game sort of opens with basically Paper Mario and Luigi heading to the Mushroom Kingdom in order to attend this origami festival. But like you can already tell things are off once Mario and Luigi make it to Toad Town, because Toad Town seems like it's weird and deserted, and then you make it to the castle, and it's like it's completely empty. There's this strange, ominous music. There's just an unsettling feel to it, and then bam, you see this origami version of Peach asking Mario all these strange and like cryptic questions about like, is it better to be folded rather than to be flat? Or if the toes are horrible and they should be dealt with. And you, of course, you can say like no to her questions, because which would be more in line with Mario's character. But you can also say yes, and if you say yes, Peach will basically like respond at the end of yes or no. It doesn't matter. I can tell everything you said was lies. So she banishes Mario. And I like that sort of detail, because it's sort of like it's still a case of no matter what option you pick, you get the same result. But I think it's better than like if you said yes and then the story like made you go back and say no. It's like you can say no or yes, but the characters will perceive it as a lie if you say yes, which I think is really cool. Sort of a way of like giving the player like choice in the dialogue, but still like making it sort of accurate to Mario's character by having it basically be, if you're saying yes, Mario's basically lying through his teeth, which I think is nice. And but yeah, you get banished, and then you end up getting into this dungeon in which you see like Mario talking to a bunch of other Goombas minions, who they are all in the belief that this is a waiting room in order to attend the festival. And I really love this bit where there's Goomba who's just like a massive fan of Mario, and he just can't wait to see the toads. Like it's really funny, and it sort of like endears you to this Goomba right away, despite having the sort of basic Goomba design. And in general, like the writing of Paper Mario Origami King is like very strong. It's very like there's like character with every sort of, the dialogue is used to give every character, despite their relatively like copy and paste sort of designs, or the fact that they aren't given quite as elaborate character designs as they were in the previous games. The designs are a bit more basic. Some of them, there are definitely some designs in this game where characters are given more elaborate designs, but they're plain characters where it's like sort of a copy and paste design or just like a recolor, especially with the Toads. But the game is able to make up for that through its like really well written dialogue. They're still able to give all these characters like a vibrant personality, and I really like it. But yeah, basically, eventually those minions get pulled away by these paper, I think it was like paper shy origami shy guys end up taking the minions away, leaving Mario alone. And while in there, Mario is able to find his companion of the game, Olivia, who's been like trapped in another dimension, which is basically just she's been like trapped between two pieces of paper within the paper world, which I think is like a fairly funny idea to like sort of express the state of like different dimensions by just being stuck between two different pieces of paper. Like I think that's funny. But yeah, you rescue her and you unlock one of the main mechanics of the game, which is like the 1,000 arm fold, which is basically like in areas that have special magical sigils, Mario's arms will be transformed into like these folded origami arms that are able to stretch out and do all sorts of stuff thanks to Olivia's power, which is like it's a relatively nice mechanic. I sort of like how the motion controls are used in it, in which you have to move the remote physically in order to move the arms. I think it's like a fairly neat idea, though it probably doesn't work very well if you're playing just on the Switch undocked instead of docked into your TV. But yeah, and you eventually escape, and then you end up having to fight. You end up having to fight origami Goombas, who no wait. First, you end up escaping, and you see that like the Bowser's different minions are being forcibly folded into these origami monsters, and you discover a folded up Bowser being forced to watch it all. And I really love this pitch in which where like Paper Mario and Bowser interact, and Bowser's like he convinces Mario to free him by saying that like Mario needs him just as much. He basically says that like despite it all, we need each other, so please help me, Mario. Which again, I really like that sort of idea of like it's sort of like a meta commentary on the fact that like Mario and Bowser need each other in order for the series to progress and premise. Like the main series is built around their conflict, so they need each other in order to progress it. But it's also just in general, it's sort of delivered in a very funny way that is very fitting for the Paper Mario series. But yeah, you eventually escape with the folded Bowser and Olivia, but then you end up running into a folded up origami Goomba being led by a weird yellow shy guy or origami shy guy, and you end up finding out that this origami Goomba you're fighting is the same Goomba you were talking to in the dungeon, who's basically now forced beyond fights to Mario against his control. And it's not like super sad or anything, but there is definitely a slight sadness to it, because you talk to this guy, he seemed friendly, and now he's completely less willing and transformed into this monster you got to fight. And it's also the drama is more accentuated by Oliver revealing that there is no way to revert the origami, the paper people who have been folded into origami back, which is like sad. And second off, I really love how this game, all the enemies you fight are basically like origami creatures. And I sort of love the way they look. Like, not only is this a good way of, like, bringing back, like, classic Mario enemies to fight, but putting a fun spin on it, but by giving them these weird origami feels, it gives them the sense of, like, uncanniness and natural. Because all the origami characters, they're not flat, they're more, like, round and 3D, which makes them look incredibly uncanny in comparison to the normal flat paper characters. And I also like how they look a bit more angular, because like a lot with the paper characters, despite being flat, there's sort of like these round curves to them, whereas with the origami ones, they're all like, because it's all folded paper, there's this very angular look to them, which is most noticeable in the eyes, which are all square, which again makes them look like they don't quite belong. It makes them look unnerving and creepy, which I really like. And I also like how Paper Peach, like, she doesn't have a mouth, like some of the other, no, not Paper Peach, Origami Peach. Origami Peach, I like how she doesn't have a mouth in comparison to the other origami creatures. Like, with the origami Goombas, you can see this origami mouth, but with Peach, there is no mouth, but I think it's sort of an intentional way of showing that she's been transformed into a puppet by the main antagonist of this game, the Origami King, who we find out is named Ollie and is Olivia's brother. Who was, and it turns out Ollie was the one who imprisoned Olivia because she tried to get away of his plot to conquer the Mushroom Kingdom and fold it all up into paper along with destroying all the Toads. But yeah, Ollie, I think he's got like a really good design. I sort of love the purple and yellow aesthetic, the color scheme helps give him that regal look, which is fitting because his name is the Origami King. But I also like how he's got like the hair, he's got like this hair sort of folded over his eyes, which I think helps not only make him look a little bit more villainous, but it also still gives him that sort of regal, bratty teenager look to him, which I think is sort of fitting in the way that um of how the Origami King sort of composes himself, where he sort of acts like this sort of bratty, snooty, entitled king, which I think is sort of like a good way of sort of characterizing him, at least in the beginning. Okay, but once that's happened, once Ollie has revealed himself to them, he eventually sends in a bunch of streamers to lift up Peach's castle, and Mario, the folded up Bowser, Olivia end up having to escape in one of Bowser's clown cars being flyed by a Shy Guy. And I really love how this opening cutscene is sort of, well, it's not an opening. I don't know if I called it opening, but like this cutscene, this cinematic is sort of like very directed. It's very dramatic and epic. I love how sort of like determined Mario looks. I love how this part where like they try to go back because they notice Luigi's cap is gone and they realize that Luigi, he was still like in the castle at the time of it being pulled out, so he's in trouble. So they try to go back to get him, only for them to get hit by one of the streamers, separating them. As like like Mario and Olivia sort of get like knocked out, and the Shy Guy has to go rescue Folded Bowser because he's got knocked out too. So that sort of separates them. So now you've lost what Bowser, who's sort of stepped as one of your allies, and you end up winding up in a forest with just Mario and Olivia. And again, though, this forest again it's so beautiful. I love sort of the lighting in this area. And one other thing I sort of like about Paper Mario is it has this sort of fixed camera. Like you can never move the camera as you sort of like travel through the area. The camera is sort of like fixed in places, which I think again really helps give off that sort of like diorama, that sort of like that paper mache diorama look of the whole thing. Like the way you're playing it and the way the camera's sort of like used in the game makes it feels like you're looking at a diorama from different angles, and it's really cool. It helps fit with sort of like the whole 2D look of it all. But yeah, basically as you go through this mysterious forest, you hear all these mysterious voices talking to. This is also the part of the game where Olivia gives Mario the confetti bag to pitch up the bottomless holes that have been that Ollie and his minions have spread throughout the world. And again, I really like this mechanic because I think it's a really cool idea of like sort of like giving sort of a gameplay option where like the world itself that the characters all live in has been like damaged. It's been like Ollie has caused massive damage to the world, so now you're given this thing that allowed you to basically fix the world as you play through it. And I really love it how it takes that sort of literal where Ollie has literally torn up and broken the world, so it's up to Mario to literally fix it by collecting more paper mache. So it's not only adding a fun collectible to the world, but it's also giving the player the sense that they are fixing the world that's been broken as they play through it more. But yeah, as you go through the forest, you end up hearing these mysterious voices, and you find out that it turns out the trees of this forest are all alive, and basically they have like trapped you in the forest because they're mad at the paper people, at the Toads, for like cutting down their leader tree, who is now just a stub called Gramps. And basically they agree to let Mario go if he is able to bring back a magic tree seed that will restore the Grandpa tree. And so basically you end up, I really also like the sort of, you end up having to find a magical forest, which is, a magical lake that can feel like crumpled up or broken paper after you find the mysterious seed, which is hidden, like like how in Smash there's that giant golden ball item that like hovers in the air and that dispenses random items down. There's something like that in the forest, and I think it's actually called like a golden nut or something that the tree seed is hidden in. So you got to use that to find it. Once you get that, then you are directed to the magical lake, which you already established earlier is used to fix crumpled up and broken paper, because there was a part of another puzzle earlier in the level in which you were like knocking things, broken up papers out into the lake in order to heal it. So yeah, basically I really do love how this game, like, it basically gives you this puzzle to solve, and it doesn't give you the answer straight up, but it lets you able to figure it out just by playing throughout the game. It's very smart. But yeah, you eventually fix the seed, go back, only to discover that it turns out some mysterious thing, whichever has been causing all these holes in the world, ripped up the grandpa tree, and now he's just like, for the most part, his face has been completely torn off, so he's now just like this paper mache stub of a tree, and you can see all the wires and stuff, and it's like, it is kind of funny to think about, because it's like a relatively goofy image when you play it, but within the context of Paper Mario in this world, like, this is a fairly horrific image. But luckily, you're able to fix the problem with enough confetti, and then you're finally able to give the grandpa tree his seed, which restores him back to his giant tree form, in which he proceeds to act like a stereotypical disco star, dancing around as the other trees begin to sing a song. And I really love this cutscene. Like, it's incredibly funny and charming, but also the song in general is just a lot of fun to listen to. And I really just love the energy of Paper Mario and Origami King so far, where it's this very fun, very exciting game. It's like, it feels kind of like you're playing like a Saturday morning cartoon, but there's still those layers of like an RPG epic adventure as you play through more of it. But yeah, eventually once you get out of the forest, you end up going to a camp in which you discover that there are several toads you need to help. Toads that have been folded up by the origami monsters or like hidden in certain places. And so the toads become the second most important collectible of this game, where as you play through the game, you end up having to find different toads that you need to save, usually by hitting them with your hammer to get them out of their folded up origami form, so that way they can go back to their happy lives. And I like this mechanic. I really love this idea for a collectible, because it not only gives like a more sort of emotional story stakes into it by making the collectibles little characters you have to help, but as you save more toads end up showing during the battle area, and the more you collect, the more they're able to help you in exchange for money, which I think is like a really cool. But I also like how the overworld, how you save more toads, the more the overworld becomes sort of populated with the toads, because as you're playing through the game, when you go to a new area, they're relatively empty as a result of most of the toads being like taken out, being like imprisoned by Ollie. So I like this idea that, like, again, it ties back to the companion thing, where these collectibles, as you get more of them, you're basically helping fix the world and restore it to its former glory and making a positive impact on everything, which is really cool. And now to talk about the battle system, Paper Mario and the Origami King has a really cool battle system where it's basically sort of like where every fight is a puzzle, where you have the ability to manipulate the sort of board in which you're fighting it, so that you can line up all the enemies, so you can do extra damage to them, which allowed you to basically like finish most fights in just one turn, which I think is like really cool. Make it so they're able to finish a fight fast, as long as you know as long as you're smart enough to solve the puzzles. And of course, you can still, even if you don't solve the puzzles well, you're still able to attack the enemies and do damage. It's just like less damage. So you get these higher rewards if you can finish the puzzles, but the fights aren't impossible if you're not smart enough to figure out the puzzles. So again, it's a really cool battle system where basically if you play smart enough, you're able to reap the most rewards, and I just really love that. And I also love how the battle stage area for the fights is framed, where it kind of looks like it's sort of like a sporting event, where the toads are all on these different bleachers watching you, and you're in this big circle fighting sort of the enemies. Kind of like, I guess, it kind of looks like a sumo ring, but sort of more elaborate. But yeah, I really like how, because I know the first two Paper Mario games sort of framed the fights as like a stage play, but here it's sort of more framed like a sporting event or like a duel, and I really like that. It's a really clever idea of doing it. Another interesting thing about this camp area is that like all the wood, or like things that are made out of wood, like they still have, if you interact with them, they'll have the eyes just like the tree and start talking. And basically the implication is that like these wooden things were all made using wood were made using the living trees. So now these buildings or these signs are now alive too. And that's a really cool level of detail, of the extra level of world building just for like this one area specific. And another cool thing about the camp area is that you can tell that you're going to have to come back to this area later after you get abilities or stuff, or after you've made more progress in the game. Because then there's one toad who talks about how he's having trouble starting his campfire, and of course you don't have the ability to set it on fire yet, so you have to wait to come back to get it later. There's also a cabin in the woods that, because it's made of the living trees, itself is alive, and it brings up how its owner hasn't come back yet. So basically, you're supposed to come back to it later after you presumably help find whatever missing toad it is that lives in this in this cabin, which is really cool. So eventually you were able to finally leave the forest and return to Toontown. However, as you've gone on that way, you've noticed these weird paper mache monsters in the background, and every time they seem to be lurking, there's this creepy, ominous music. So when you finally make it to Toontown, you get hit with it. Bam! These giant paper mache Goombas that are like destroying Toontown, just tearing it up and eating all the paper that the buildings are made of. And basically this reveals that they're the ones who are causing all the bottomless holes throughout the world, and they're the ones that ate up the grandpa tree. So basically, and I really do like this gimmick of these super enemies for you to fight in the world. They're called, like, I think they're actually called paper machos, which I think is a really funny pun on paper mache. But I do like the idea of, like, creating these sort of, like, 3D paper mache monsters that are able to eat and destroy the world. Because, again, it's like the origami creature. There's this creepy sort of uncanny valley effect to them. Because, again, they're, like, fully 3D and stuff flat. But you can also, like, see the barbed wire under them, under their paper exterior, that makes them sort of feel more mechanical, less like actual people, more like these monsters, these like biomechanical machine-like monsters you have to defeat to take down. Now, in order to defeat them, you basically have to hit the because like Ollie's places magic on them through these magical stickers, and what you have to do is you have to knock the sticker off with your hammer and proceed to hit the paper macho enemies enough times until they break. Which again, though, it's relatively easy, but it's sort of fun to have like these enemies you can fight in the overworld outside the standard boss system. And the way they look is just incredible. The way they're animated, the way they move around, just again, and you can also see like the lighting inside them. It's gorgeous. Like I said, again, Paper Origami King is an absolutely beautiful game with like top tier lighting, amazing sort of effects. The way everything is portrayed using paper is just, it's perfect. It really looks like a arts and crafts world come to life, and it's so good. But yeah, eventually you're able to defeat them, help get the toads out, and then you're able to... But unfortunately, the monsters have already destroyed the bridge to Peach's castle, so you end up having to use the sewer to access it. And one thing I like how that within the sewer, there's like this mural of Paper Mario and Paper Peach, which is fairly cute. But I also like that when you're in the sewer, it's blue, like the sewer levels of like Mario games. But also the enemies there are like the crabs from the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. So it's sort of cool how they brought back these enemies to fight in an area reminiscent of their original appearance. But yeah, eventually you make it to the destroyed Peach's castle. You realize that the Peach's castle is now on top of a mountain, and that there are these different streamers. And you're able to put two and two together, that if you take down these streamers, you should be able to access Peach's castle again. So, but before you can do that, you have to help Luigi, who's also trapped in dimensions like Olivia. And then Luigi, after being saved, decides to go on a quest to find the key to Peach's castle in order to help Mario as payment for all the times Mario saved him. So I like how they sort of give Luigi his own sort of like quest in the game. And I haven't run into Luigi again later, but I do know he shows up again later as part of his own side quest to find the key for Peach's castle. And in general, I like how they're sort of like giving Luigi his own sort of like side quest, his own adventure to do in the story, but it still connects to the overall big adventure. Which again is nice, because like I know Luigi kind of gets the short end of the stick in like the first two Paper Mario games, and it isn't until Super Mario 3 in which he becomes like a part of the main cast and plays a big role in the main story. So seeing him still get to play a role in this story, even if it's a more like sort of basically getting to see Luigi get on his own quest that still ties back into the main story, is really cool. Anyway, once that's done, you and Olivia follow the red streamer in order to go to, basically you go to this park and you fight enemies, but then you discover that there's this mysterious earth animal that the Koopas worship, because it's a turtle just like them. However, the entrance to the area has been locked thanks to the magical orbs to it being stolen by the origami monsters. So as you end up going throughout the park as part of your adventure to find the red stream, you're able to recover some of the orbs, and then you find out that the red ribbon ties up to a tourist lighthouse. Maybe not lighthouse, but more like a tower, like this touristy tower within the park. But unfortunately, the ground underneath the tower has been risen up to prevent anybody from getting access to it, and Olivia's able to put two and two together and figure out that the earth elemental must have been used by her brother in order to make it so that nobody can reach the tower to get rid of the ribbon. So then, but luckily, since if you're playing the game and you've noticed enough, you were smart enough in order to like recover the orbs as you went through it. And I thought this was interesting because when I first played the game, I thought this Earth Elemental thing would be like sort of a side quest we can do, not part of the main story. So I was collecting the orbs as I was climbing up throughout the park and the mountains because I wanted to be able to access the Earth Elemental later. But then it turns out no, it's actually part of the main story. So like it is cool. Like you put in this extra effort to do something that you thought was side quest, only to figure out it's actually part of the main story, and then you're just doing what the game wanted to, which I think is like really clever. Also, like one of my favorite hidden orbs is this one in which you find with a skeleton Koopa Trooper, only to figure out there's actually just a shy bone, which I think is like a relatively funny gag. But yeah, once you find all the orbs, you're able to access the shrine of the Earth Elemental, which as you go through it turns out it's been actually converted into a tourist trap by a sort of like shady toad who's been trying to get money off the Koopas for their worshipping. Which is like, it is a relatively funny segment getting to see all the different boxes and exhibits and seeing how like clearly fake and bullshit they are. And then there's a part in which you see the Earth Elemental, but it's just a crappy cardboard cutout put there by the head of the tourist area. But once you're able to break it down, you're able to go to the rest of the shrine, and you're finally able to fight the real Earth Elemental, which has been corrupted by Ollie. And this is like the first boss fight in the game. I really sort of like how boss fights are designed in the Paper Mario game. It's a puzzle like normal battles, but it's a different one where instead of like having to like just line up the enemies, now you have to create a sort of like a board. It's sort of, it kind of like reminds me of a board game where these different spaces and steps and stuff. Basically, you have to create a path for Mario to reach the boss so that they can attack him. And if you're smart enough, you're able to find weaknesses on the bosses that allow you to do these super attacks that do massive damage down on them, which I really like. That's basically again taking sort of the puzzle elements of the normal battles but making it a bit more difficult and adding this extra layer of being able to finish a boss more quickly or avoid its more powerful attacks if you're smart enough to figure out the puzzles, which is like really cool. Basically, once you defeat the Earth Elemental, Olivia unlocks the ability to transform into the Earth Elemental using the magic symbols similar to the thousand arm move. So basically, and what's also cool is that these things can also be used in like later fights, specifically boss fights. Which again is cool. Of course, though, it has to be like when the sigil appears. But it's just general neat that like not only have you defeated this boss, but you've added a new ability to your repertoire. And I really like this sort of elementals. They add a unique and original element of lore to the paper world that is different from just like having it copy sort of elements from the Mario games. But now it's like added a full-on all elements of its own original lore to it by creating these elemental deities that are worshipped by the people of the Mario world that all have their own unique sort of like origami forms. Again, it's really cool. But once you've got that, you're able to finally lower down the tower in which you climb up to it to reach the ribbon. But as you go through the tower, these mysterious colored pencils keep getting away, and you see these scribbles of this artwork all filled out the tower as you need to help. And the toad you help throughout the tower also comment on the art, and they speak of this horrific monster with these sharp, colorful fangs attacking the tower. And as you get up, you figure out who's causing all this damage, and it's basically a sentient case of colored pencils that is working for Ollie, and whose job is to protect the ribbon. And I really like this. I mean, it's basically taking the things which were like these super attacks from the previous two Mario games. They're basically like these real life objects that Mario would be able to like use for these super attacks, but sort of like making them bosses instead and giving them their own full-fledged personality. Like the colored pencil one. He's basically like this super pretentious artist who's like all rude and snobby. And I there's this theme I've already noticed about him and the sort of other bosses. I think they're like they're called the art of stationery, the stationaries. Basically, they're like these living like tools used in arts and crafts. but I can already notice a recurring theme of them of basically like they're tools for art, but they've been turned for this more destructive purposes. And I like how the colored pencil one is sort of characterized as this pretentious artist who is willing to scribble around the world and hurt people for the sake of his art, but he thinks he's above everyone else. He thinks his art is more valuable than the sake of other people, and that he's basically like he is destroying for the sake of his art. He is running over the hopes and dreams of others for his art. So again, his personality fits into this theme of the arts of stationaries basically being like tools of artistry being turned into destruction that harm and destroy others for the sake of their own selfish desires. Which I think is like a really cool idea, and I definitely betting that like art and creation is going to be a big theme as I play through more at the game, because origami itself is a form of art, it's a form of creation, and so like having that thing become the main antagonistic force I think is very interesting. And it's like another great way of taking sort of the arts and crafts aesthetic of this game and having it play into like the actual story and themes of it by having the enemies be living sentient arts and craft tools. It's just really cool. And I also think it's really cool that making these like 3D realistic objects be villains for you to fight is really cool, because again, just like with the origami stuff, they have this uncanny valley aspect to them that sort of contrasts the normal flat paper characters that you had to fight throughout the game. So again, it adds a sort of layer of like goofiness but also terror through the uncanny, through the disconnect, which I think is really cool. But yeah, eventually you're able to destroy it, and I really love the sort of ways you can attack it. You can either get behind it to slam it down its door thing, so you can stomp all over it, or you can get in the front later on and grab all his paper pencils and just shove it down his throat over and over again until he breaks. It's like, oh, it's metal as fuck for a Mario game to have you like grab this monster's teeth and bash him with it. It's so cool. It's cool. Ah. But yeah, once that's done, thanks to the ribbon being destroyed, you're able to access the I forget what it's called, but it's like, you know, those sort of like, it's like a tram. I think it's like, you know, sort of a tram thing. It's basically those art transportation things in which you like sit in the seat and it carries you across mountain areas. But you're able to access this tram so that you can go to the place with the next ribbon, which is a blue ribbon. And while you're on this tram, I don't even know if I'm saying the right name. I'm probably not. Somebody else can probably correct me in the comments about what the actual content. Basically, on your there, you meet this Bob who has lost his memories and his fuse wire. And Olivia ends up calling him Bobby, and he ends up joining Mario and Olivia as their sort of companion in this journey, in hopes that like going on these ventures with them will not only allow him to regain his memories, but also make new memories as he goes on this venture with them. And I do really like Bobby's personality. He's sort of like, in contrast to Olivia, who's like this bubbly, high energy, optimistic girl, Bobby is slightly more sassy and slightly more. He's not necessarily pessimistic, but he's definitely not as energetic as Olivia. But as you sort of see around him, he is sort of similar to Olivia, in which he's sort of very naive and very like easy to excitement. So I do sort of like that pairing of like, basically Bobby tries to present himself as someone who is more aloof and more serious than he actually is, when in reality he's just like Olivia, where he's this very sort of naive and very playful and energetic person. But yeah, I really like Bobby as a companion, though I wish I could control him in battle. Like, because, like, again, he is a companion who will fight you in battle, but he's sort of like an AI thing where, like, after you do your attack, Bobby will try to do an attack, and there'll be a certain chance of, like, how often he's able to hit. Because sometimes Bobby's able to hit an enemy, and it'll do 20 whole damage, which is impressive, but sometimes he'll just straight up miss. But I do kind of like this idea that because he sort of lost his fuse, he can't do the standard explosion attack, so he just, like, attacks by, like, ramming in enemies. It's relatively funny. And also, like, his sitting pose is very cute, and I like it how when in fights, before it's his turn, he'll just be doing in that cute little sitting pose. But yeah, eventually, after you make it to your next destination, and you basically go to, like, this Japanese-style mountain area, where you discover that the water has mysteriously gone missing. So you have to visit the water elemental in order to basically restore the water to this area. And it's really fun. I really love this sort of classical Japanese aesthetic of the area. There's also this part in which you go through these giant grass fields that cover the whole thing. so you can't really see Mario in it. Well, so you have to track your movement based on how like the grass sort of flutters as you move. And also, this is also part where you get to use a cool tool you have that basically helps you like sort of find the missing toads, and you're able to use that to help you better find the toads among all the high grass, which I think is cool. But yeah, there's also this, but throughout, as you try to make it through the water elemental shrine, Bobby repeatedly gets separated from the groups, which leads to like these relatively funny hijinks and situations. I love this part where like Bobby gets separated, so he ends up hanging out with another one of Bowser's minions, who in turn is waiting for his friends to show up so that they can have like a party together, which is like, I like it. Some more characterization. I really love how all the NPCs are rich in this game. It does a lot to not only humanize and characterize the Toads, but as well as Bowser's minions. And again, the dialogue is very much able to make up for the relatively bland design some of the characters have. Like, I would prefer if it did with the original Paper Mario games do, where they went with these more original designs for the Toads and the minions, giving them a variety of different accessories, hairstyles, and outfits. But again, they're still able to do that with some of the Toads in this game, even though it's not as many as them. And again, the dialogue is able to give enough personality and character to the NPCs to make up for the designs. But yeah, eventually you end up making it to the shrine, while also saving Bobby from repeated instances of clumsy danger. And eventually you make it to the shrine. But unfortunately, Bobby stays out because he's scared. And I do wish you could keep your companions when you're in the dungeons, but I guess they decided to take it away. Well, I'm not really sure why they don't let your companions go in the dungeons. Maybe they just wanted it to be more like, maybe they felt that it would take away some of the challenge of the dungeons. I don't know. Or maybe it was just an instance of they didn't want to have to worry about like writing more dialogue for them too in these scenes. It's weird, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I'd rather the companions be there, but it's not like it's completely hurting my experience. And like it's again, it does disappoint me that I can't control my companions in battle. But like just having the companions again, even if they don't do a whole lot, is very nice. But yeah. Eventually you make it through the water elemental shrine, which you have to do a series of puzzles in order to get more water flowing so that you can finally access the way to the water elemental. And the boss fight for the water elemental is about where I stopped. Like, it is a cool boss fight, but I'm definitely having trouble figuring out the puzzle, which has resulted in me getting sort of stuck at the fight. So I ended up taking a break because, like, shortly after I got to this boss, I had to go to Anime Central 2023 for my vacation. But yeah, that's my experience with Paper Mario the Origami King so far. I think it's an absolutely fantastic game. I can definitely see it becoming, like, a favorite once I finish it. Like, so far, ranking all the 4 Mario games I've been playing so far, I definitely rank it at, I think Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story at the top, Paper Mario the Origami King second, then Mario Odyssey, and then Mario Sunshine at the bottom. But yeah, I've been enjoying so many of these games, been on a real Mario kick lately, but that kick is probably going to interrupt it soon because I recently got Tears of the Kingdom, and that has definitely been taking away a bunch of my attention when it comes to video game stuff. So maybe I'll talk about Tears of the Kingdom for my next podcast. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this this podcast, please like and subscribe so you can check out. Please give it a like, and if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe to my channel, the Blue Princess 590. And remember, if you subscribe, to hit that bell so you don't miss any of the notifications. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an absolutely lovely day, my beautiful watchers. Technically listeners, but you know what? I'm just going to call you watchers too, because I think, you know what? I'll just switch between watchers and listeners whenever I feel like it, because I like both. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I probably shouldn't be thanking so many times, but you know what? I spent a lot of time in this podcast, and I'm so glad that you people are watching this, so I'm going to give you all the thank yous in the world. So you know what? I'm going to give you 7 thank yous right now. Thank you, 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 thank you. That was probably more than 7. I lost count. I'm sorry about that. But again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you're here for the next podcast, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye. I love you all. Mwah!